This is a great meeting room. Good afternoon, everyone. Let's get started. We don't have a quorum yet. We have enough non-action items on this agenda that we can get a lot accomplished when they show up and put the heat on them with the action items. So, I'm Joe Gunter. I'm the mayor of Salinas. I'm a member of the leadership council. We're going to go around and have everyone introduce themselves and acknowledge where they're from. You're up, Joe.
Okay, Gloria de la Rosa, Salinas council member, and I am Joe's
Mayor Pro Tem.
mayor. Oh, I am? Okay.
Yep.
Start this month, I think.
Yeah.
You know, I'm the mayor of CESH.
You want to be the mayor of Salinas, go right.
And I'm Enrique Ardela. I want to thank everyone for being here today at San Benito County. Welcome. I'm with Health and Human Services Agency, Community Service Workforce Development.
Okay,
Javier Gomez here for Supervisor Luis Well.
okay.
Me?
No, you could wait, everybody knows who you are.
Where am
Yes, okay, so I'm Roxanne Wilson, Program Manager for the Homeless Coalition.
Hi, I'm Dan Baldwin, CEO of the Community Foundation for Monterey County. I'm actually his alternate, Laurel Lee Alexander.
Good afternoon, I'm Elsa Jimenez. I'm the Health Director in Monterey County. Thanks for inviting us to your county.
Good afternoon, I'm Michael Listman, Deputy Director for Behavioral Health in the Health Department.
Hello, Kurt Shockey, Executive Director of Veterans Transition Center in Marina.
I'm Derek Free, I'm the HMIS Car Specialist for the Homeless Coalition.
Serena Salinas, Social Worker for Whole Person Care.
Noemi Perez, Social Worker with Whole Person Care.
Trino Serrano, Eligibility Specialist for Community Service and Workforce Development.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Jose Martinez Saldaña with Youth Alliance, San Diego and Santa Clara counties.
I'm Margie Allen with the Youth Alliance.
Good afternoon, my name is Darren Thompson, I'm the county sheriff.
We'd all be good down here, that's sure.
Eric Taylor, I'm the operations captain of the sheriff's office.
Brett Miller, Interim City Manager, City of Hall.
Good afternoon, Gino Osaka, City of Hollister and San Diego County Housing Programs Coordinator. Cheryl Mullen, City of Hollister.
Jessica Gutierrez, Executive Director, Housing Research Center, Monterey County.
I'm Tracy Belton, Health and Human Services Director here, and welcome to our Whole Person Care Center. Sylvia Hawkins, Program Manager for San Benito County Health and Human Services and the Americas Job Center.
Andy Anderson, Staff Services Specialist at Community Services and Workforce Development.
Susan Love with the Friend of the Library.
Elizabeth King, with the Homeless Service Center, Community Homeless Solutions.
Chris Benavidez, the Program Coordinator for the Homeless Shelter for the Research Center.
Good afternoon, Jill Allen with Northeast Place in Salinas.
Welcome everyone, my name is Christina Soto and I'm the Program Manager over here next door at the shelter for Community Homeless Solutions.
Hi, my name is Fernando Lindo. I'm part of the staff and also a resident here at the Homeless Shelter.
My name is Megan Hunter, the Community Development Director for the City of Salinas, and thank you, Sandy, for listening.
CJ Valenzuela, Planning Manager, City of Salinas.
Maria Gurrola, Chair for Social Work at CSUMB.
Taylor Clower, Representative for Assembly Member Robert Davis. Tina Garza, City of Hollister Recreation.
Gina Alvarez, Associate Director with CISO.
Judy Cabrera, Executive Director of CISO.
John Lama, one of the residents.
Jorge Arias, client for Home Person Care.
Okay.
Elliot Robinson, Interim Executive Officer of the Coalition of Homeless Services Providers. Thank you everyone for coming. Speaking with our chair, we're going to go through non-action items, hoping we get a quorum. If we don't get a quorum, I may just introduce the action items so that people are briefed on what they are, but not take an actual vote on them unless we get a quorum in today.
Okay, I'm going to go right to the public comments, and we'll get that done. The public, anyone from the public who would like to comment on any items not on the agenda?
Sure, I will. Let's see if I can be in the place. My name's Wes White. I'm from Salinas, president of Salinas Monterey County Homeless Union, co-president actually. Just concerned, I guess, about sweeps, level of sweeps, how we deal with people to begin with. I'd like to see affordable housing units be made for RVs, cars, and tents to legitimize people rather than these draconian laws that keep pushing people around and taking everything they got, making them go to court. I have about 3 or 4 people that are right now having to go to court for camping, which is like you can't promise not to have to sleep outside unless you want to die. So, I mean, we really need to change the way that our approach goes, jurisdiction-wise, judicial-wise, you know, compassion-wise, financial-wise, and just accept that this is already affordable housing, what people can afford. And legitimize people, especially if they're signing for cars. And if they are signing for cars, then this body needs to protect those people that are already signed up because they're already in charge, your ward. You're supposed to take care of these people. You already made a contract by signing them up for services. You know, I mean, this carnage needs to quit. And, I mean, you know, we need to stop the sweeps altogether, first and foremost.
Thank you, Mr. White. Okay. Go right ahead. So no one else go ahead for further comments?
Hi, yes, I just wanted to say that about 5 years ago I became homeless and living on the street, in and out of jail, and thanks to the shelter here, I was able to, you know, have like a foundation where I've been able to, you know, move forward. I've been employed here, working at the shelter. I can't say the shelter did everything for me, but it did give me the foundation to move forward, and that's one thing that we need to like really try to protect. I'm really grateful that we've had the ability here to do that. I want to see it being able to reach other people as well.
Okay. So John, this is John Lawrence, and he wanted me to speak for him because today is a really big day for him today. So I've known John for about 5 years. When I used to work at the county, that's how I met him. And he's been staying here at the shelter. He's been homeless since the 80s. And thanks to all the help from anyone from Linda over to Serena here at Whole Person Care, I'm happy to say that John went for his housing interview today, and he got housed today. We'll be looking out. So during this whole entire process, he's been a big bundle of emotion. And I told him that his story is a very good story to give, because he's a true testament that shelters and programs like Whole Person Care, and it takes a whole village to be able to get people to where they need to be, but this has been a long time in coming. I told them, we've been waiting 5 years for this day, so I'm really, really proud of him. And I'm sad to see you here.
Can I add a little story about John? Because
who is this guy that just walked in?
I have to make it hard, so I'm telling you because I'll tell you a quick story. Because John and I go back 20 plus years, and I've got to know the homeless community because of John. And there was at one point he'd come to my office pretty much every day, every other day. We'd have a long talk about what's happening in different camps and different things. And like all of us, we have concerns, we care. But the day that turned my life around about the homeless was one day he came to my office and he brought me a picture, because he was telling me about his stories, his family life. And it was a picture of his mother and John as I think they were 5. Dude, how big is 5? Well, little, he was a little guy. And she's holding his hand. And she has the look of my life. This is my baby, this is my life. And his smile in that picture, and it struck me because it made me realize everyone has somebody that loves them. And we all have to remember that, because it's important. Because once we lose that connection, we lose who we are. And he's always inspired. I'm glad to hear that. That's what I'm thinking.
Very good. Any more public comment?
Yes, my name is Lily Crippen. I'm 59 years old, and I've been at the shelter since November. And I haven't been homeless a long time. I had money once, and some of my friends were in shelter. You know, they were still my friends before. But I've never seen a better organized, well-organized machine than what Christine does. She runs an excellent ship. I don't know what I'd do without her. She saved my life. She defined my character because my dad said when all the cards are down, that's when your character is defined. And all my cards are down, but she told me to hang in there, get tough. Well, I got tough, but she runs an excellent, excellent program ship. And when I had my company, I would have hired her in a second. I would have hired her. I probably still would have had it. But she also is very fair to all of us. Believe me, I know, because I tried to play trick on her the other day. I usually don't get in trouble. I was at my mother's. I wanted to stay an extra day. And I told my mother, I'll just call her and say I hurt my back or something. Mom, tell her that I'm hurt. She goes, I'm not going to do that. I was, whatever I was telling Christina, she goes, okay, Cicely, but you're taking your chances, you know. And I thought, okay, I'm going to. She didn't budge. She said, you're taking your chances. I said, well, Mom, Cynthia can't give me a ride in my father's sick. She says, that's why I'm taking you. She's 81 years old on a, oxygen tank, but you can't BS my mother. And she said, now you're not going home this for a week, and don't ever pull that stuff with me again. Because I said, oh, Christina said we can stay for as long, a week or two, it doesn't matter. But she sticks to her guns. She doesn't play favorites. She has a hard job. She has to balance a lot of personalities, And everybody's story is different. But just because you're poor doesn't mean you're stupid. Just because you're poor doesn't mean we don't matter. Just because you're poor doesn't mean that the laws don't abide to us. Because rich or poor, young or old, blind or disabled, gay or lesbian, all Americans deserve equal and due process justice. Whether we have 4 legs or 32. God bless America and God bless all of you.
So we're going to go through some of the information items. So we're going to skip over the consent agenda. We're going to skip over the discussion, the action item on the HHAP application. And we're going to move right into the Continuum of Care governance charter and standards update. And so just for background, we're going by memory, I believe the governance charter for the Continuum of Care was rewritten in 2016, as I recall my timing right. And one of the issues that we wanted to make sure that we did when we did that is involve more of our jurisdictional partners more deeply, because so much of housing policy, homeless policy, kind of rests with our various public jurisdictions. So when we modified the charter for the government charter in 2016, that was one of the big goals. One of the requirements of a Continuum of Care is actually that we review our governance charter annually. And we haven't done that yet. And so we are going back to reviewing our governance charter. And so attached to this is a document mostly based on our existing governance charter. Or we did consult with Homebase, one of the HUD technical assistance advisors in California, to help us rewrite that. So they looked over our governance charter, made some changes to the governance charter. We met with stakeholders in the process of updating the governance charter. The biggest changes that I can recall, and Roxanne will refresh my memory because her memory is a little bit better than mine these days. The big change that came out of the stakeholder meeting we had was a desire to add another homeless services provider and another formerly homeless person to our leadership council. And some of these positions we actually have to go back as staff and work with you guys, actually it shouldn't be a staff, but work with you guys to actually fill some vacant seats. That's an important function that we have. And leading up to that, we want to revise our governance charter. So the draft is attached for this council to review, and I'd like to bring that back to the next meeting after you review, and with any comments you may have. If you have comments, please forward them to me and to Roxanne. My Nell is executive at CHSPMontereyCounty.org. And Charlie San Benito, that's just the domain we could find. That was typable. And Roxanne at CHSP. No,
R. Wilson.
R. Wilson at CHSPMontereyCounty.org. If you have comments on it, please let us know.
So I have a clarifying point. So you right now mentioned adding an additional person to category 2, if I heard you correctly?
There are 2 people in category 2.
So do we currently have one, or do we currently have, does this
Currently, there's
include-
one of each.
Okay, so this includes changes that staff think, this is a draft that includes changes that you think we should be considering?
That our stakeholders.
Okay, okay.
Another change on here is, oh no, that's in a different section. So this is our governance charter, please review and get back to us. Same spiel about reviewing and getting back to us is there's another document which is new, which are the home written standards for operating a continuum of care. We haven't had written standards in the past. These are largely based on HUD requirements, and they give us, none of these should be surprises for those of you who kind of delved into it. And for the most part, it is complying with the federal regulations that we need to have. We did think that is also very important at the end of the document to put more in about conflict of interest. Since largely we make a number of funding decisions over time, and that can be challenged. I thought that was at the end of the document, but it's not.
It's in the governance charter.
Oh, it's in the governance charter. Conflict of interest is in the governance charter. Thank you. But these are written standards. Same thing too. Review, let us know what you think. Although this is much more largely based on federal requirements. If you do have comments though, we may come back and say it's the federal law, we can't do anything about it, but we may be able to incorporate it as well. So we meet every other month, so our next meeting will be in March. So between now and March, review, and we welcome comments. Are there any questions?
How do the written standards relate to the governing charter? I mean, is it like a two-part of the same approval process that you're envisioning?
I would envision it as a package, although it doesn't. The governance charter defines how we're structured. Written standards define the standards that you want the staff of the leadership council to manage in relation to the programs that we fund.
And how would we know what the substantial changes are to the current governing charter to the one that home base review?
It's on our website. But more than that, I'll email that out to the leadership council. We'll do the leadership council public so that, again, I have to pay more attention to your guys' comments, but we welcome anyone's comments. Just understanding that we do have a number of federal requirements we have to pass through, and you are the final approval body of anything we do. Any other questions? Did I answer?
Sure. So everybody get ready to send him some good updated emails. California Emergency Senior Housing and CESH update.
Okay. Yes, sir. This Tina. Yeah.
Hi everyone, I'm Tina. I'm with the City of Salinas. I'm the cash project coordinator. I just wanted to give you a brief update of where things are at. On the 7th of January, we had our final board approval. That was the Board of Supervisors, and that was for the additional matching funds through County Whole Person Care. So that went through. We're very excited to have that additional money and have big plans for it. The same day we had the cash orient, and that was to get the awardees oriented to the process and the collaboration. So that's going forward. In preparation, there's been 3 peer advisory council meetings. The peer advisory council was recruited at the Chinatown Town Hall or by provider referral and just doing outreach down there in Chinatown in the downtown district. So we have 6 folks who expressed interest, 4 who attended regularly, and then 2 alternates. So we had those 3 meetings in December and January. We had several awardee meetings, subcontractor meetings, and we are having the first work group on the 28th, and we hope to get the process started on the 31st. And signed agreements are in process and under negotiations.
Anybody have any questions here while we got her here? Okay. So we're going to HEAP.
Okay, really quick, the HEAP update. So all the HEAP contracts are let. So that's done. It's been done for several months. We had a little pause waiting for some services and some of the projects that we funded to actually get started. I'm happy to report that our biggest project, the shelter in Salinas, all the contracts are let, and that's moving forward on a timely basis. There are some delays in terms of getting lease agreements kind of straightened away between Monterey County and Community Human Services with the build out of the family shelter in Seaside. I think all those roadblocks have now been cleared, and that's moving forward. Also, in terms of capital, San Benito County is working through the site prep type documents, or site, prep isn't quite the right word, but the site authority documents.
Did the graphics already? No, it's done already.
Okay. So that's all moving forward, and they hopefully will be in place to issue an RFP very soon.
They're going before the board of supervisors next month for approval to release the process.
And Community Homeless Solutions is moving forward with their remodel of the permanent housing that they have. In terms of our youth grant, that is up and running. I think all of our other grants are actually up and running at this point. Youth grant, HRC is starting to, has the staff in place and are starting to issue their rapid rehousing payments. And Cecil probably was our first one out the gate with services running. CHS, yeah, I think that covers it. And if any of our providers who are here want to add anything to my brief report, you're welcome to add. Robin, anything to add?
Everything's going great, and we just appreciate the financial support. We have 6 transition age youth homeless clients already.
So just to summarize, one of the activity is the transitional housing. It's plans to have up to 14 units at the migrant center, way on the far end of the migrant center. And I think a week and a half or 2, there's drilling because the location is maybe about 100, 150 away from the fault line. So the geotech, company did some drilling, so now we're waiting for the report. And based on all that, we're gonna most likely to move forward with it because there's existing housing, but as part of the process, we need to do a geotech report and drilling. So once that happens, it will go before the board of supervisors, and hopefully we get enough bids to go with the process and get these built as soon as we can.
Yeah, we hired staff as we expected in December. We have 4 clients that we're working with now, and we're working on 3 new clients to bring them on board as clients. And we expect our first housing to happen either late this month or early next month.
Judy, anything from Cecil?
So we have enrolled a total of about 30 clients into the program. 7 of them are fully housed, and we have 4 of them pending to be housed by the end of this month. Hopefully by next week, we can house additional 4 of them.
Christine, I don't know if you have any kind of capital side for the homeless.
So I know that they're working on the process of moving their transitional housing units into permanent supportive housing. And I know they're in the process of getting bids to be able to start moving forward on the renovations that need to be done for those units. So that
we have another.
Yeah, so my name is Benito, I'm part of San Benito County, and I'm an eligibility specialist, so I get to work with some of these individuals. Comes with the interview process, so it comes with sitting down and hearing their story and seeing where they're coming from and what their goals are. So it's just really humbling and inspiring to me to have the resource to be able to provide these clients and individuals an opportunity to really kind of change their lives in a way, especially if, for example, dealing with homelessness for several years. It's just definitely a humbling experience, and I'm happy to be part of this and being invited to this meeting and being able to kind of share my personal thought towards it. So thank you guys.
If I could just add, Trino operates the HEAP rental assistance program, and my understanding that all clients have been recruited and funds obligated for the rental assistance program.
So total of 7 months.
Hi, I'm Linda Lampy, and most of the folks in the county here know who we are. I'm the founder and director of Hollister Community Outreach. We're a nonprofit. We've been, we're celebrating our 5th year at my father's house. We're a drop-in day center for homeless folks. We don't call it a homeless center, we call it a launch pad because we don't believe in homelessness. We work to help get people housed and jobbed, and without all the folks from the health department, from Christina, from housing, from home, it's amazing how we can connect. We are open 7 days a week. We serve hot breakfast, hot lunch. The van from the shelter actually drops the folks off there and picks them up in the afternoons. We receive no funding from any government agency whatsoever, even though some of the folks believe that some of the folks that we serve think that we do, because they can't believe that we would do this out of our hearts. Our mission statement is to change the face of homelessness in San Benito County, the way the homeless person sees themselves, the way they see others, and the way others see them. And we do that with empowerment, of teaching people how they think about themselves. And the way they see others is when others reach out and help them. And the way others see them is we get involved in the community. Whereas we're helping with the Lights On Parade or the Veterans Day Parade or anything that we can do in the community. And some of the folks that you see sitting here are guests at my father's house. And I've seen some major transformational changes. John and I have been friends. He used to hound me all the time. He never believed that we would get my father's house open. It's a struggle for us right now because my husband has leukemia and he was a realtor, and basically all the funding came from real estate sales, and because of his health, it's been difficult. We've opened a store called Worth Saving, and the reason we do that is we tell people when you find your true worth, there are no stopping you. And we've worked very closely with John and another gentleman who lived in a car for 4.5 years. He got the keys to his apartment Christmas Eve. Our store helps furnish the houses for the folks that get housing. And we were able to give this other gentleman, and Gracie, I worked with her on Saturday. A lady had been on the waiting list for 7 years. So they came over to our store. We were able to help them with furniture, with lamps. It was a real exciting part of being part of that process. Somehow I'm hoping that we can expand that because as many people as we've helped get off the streets, the problem is there's still too many out there. And it breaks my heart when I have to tell people, well, they say, well, you help this person, why can't you help me? Well, we're trying. You know, we're doing everything we can. So with this kind of organization, we can come together. I'm hoping that there can be even more teamwork. And I don't know how we could be considered to be part of the funding. I would like to invite anybody here to come to my father's house, see our operation, see what we do. We're a 100% volunteer organization. Most of the folks that are homeless are the ones that keep the place clean and paint it, etc. Because there's ownership when you say, my father's house. There's ownership. So I'm glad to be here today. I found out about this at the city council meeting last night when the mayor mentioned it. And usually I'm so in the trenches I don't have time to come. But I'm glad to be here today, and thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Behind you.
I was just going to mention
mentioned, since there's a lot of activity on No Place Like Home, I'm wondering if that would be a good update for next time.
That would be. We'll look at that.
Well, we're gonna step back just for a minute. It seems we've now developed our quorum. And I'd like to go to the consent agenda and look for a motion on the leadership council minutes and the service employment and income committee meeting minutes.
I move approval of the minutes.
Have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you. Anybody have any questions or comments on those? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes. We're going to move right into the homeless housing assistant prevention HHAP application recommendations attached.
I'll go through those. So on page 44 of your agenda packet is just a one-page briefer over what I'm going to discuss. So as you all know, the HHAP funding allocations were distributed by the state last month. There are 3 pots of funding in HHAP. Those 3 pots consist of just shy of $3.2 million that comes to the Continuum of Care, which you oversee. There's also an allocation of just shy of $2.7 million going to Monterey County that the Board of Supervisors will oversee. And then in San Benito County, there's an allocation of just over $300,000 that will be overseen by the San Benito County Board of Supervisors. And part of the requirements, though, are that we all collaborate on our applications, and we've been doing that over the last month. One of the first points of collaboration was actually to figure out the state's mistakes with allocations, which we actually corrected to get the allocations balanced between Monterey and San Benito County more appropriately. In order to move forward, we need your approval to submit an application. And the application is relatively straightforward. It asks for basically information about our system, what financing is in our system, and we've been diligently gathering that money, how much money is currently in our homeless network, that's part of it. The other big part of it is we're going to have to make an initial allocation of funds to various categories of services. And there are 11 categories of services. There's administration. So funds that can go into administration are capped at 7%. There's planning. That's capped at 5%. And there's youth. That's a floor. That's on a cap. Minimum of 8% needs to be spent for youth. Then with no caps or minimum are rental assistance, rapid rehousing, operating subsidies and reserves, landlord incentives, outreach and employment, including outreach and coordination, including employment, system support to create regional partnerships, delivery of permanent housing, innovative solutions such as hotel and motel conversions, prevention and shelter diversion to permanent housing, and new navigation centers based on demonstrated need. So those are the categories we can put money into. Now, the first thing that I just need to impress upon people, whatever category we put into now can be changed. This isn't something that is locked in once we deliberate. And if you recall, when we submitted the HEAP application, it was the same thing. We don't know yet what the community process will give us, what the notice of funding will release will give us. So we're recommending placeholder allocations, in essence, so that we can move forward with an application which is due by February 15th. The process usually occurs when the application is submitted. If it meets all the marks, the state will release the funds for the continuum of care, or for the counties, the state will release the funds to the counties. And once we finish a notice of funding availability process, then we will come back as a board to do a few things. One is to, third recommendation. So first recommendation is authorize the staff to prepare of the application. Second recommendation is for us to distribute funds. And third recommendation is to set up a task force to actually design the notice of funding. So those are the 3 steps. Once the notice of funding is out, those recommendations, well, one, notice of funding will have to be approved by your board, and then next, whatever funding recommendations come out of the review committee will come back to your board to consider. So that's the rough process. What we need today is authorization to proceed. The funding categories that we recommended, which are 7% to administration, 5% to planning, 8% to youth, 20% to outreach. We put 30% in innovative solutions. As just kind of a placeholder to say we are very interested in innovation as a community. And then 30% to rental assistance and rapid rehousing. Those categories may change when we actually get to the NOPA, but for today, that's how we want to submit the application. And third, to establish a task force to report back to the March Leadership Council meeting with recommendations for a notice of funding availability. Those are the recommendations. Somewhere in the discussion we'll also have to come up with who the members are. My rough thought is I would like someone from the funding community. I would like someone from San Benito County. I think having someone from the Salinas area would be very valuable. I think someone from the Monterey Peninsula area would be valuable. I think someone from each county on our task force would be valuable. And I think someone from Southern Monterey County would be valuable. I don't know if we have everyone in the room to come up with the stakeholders. I can throw out a few names I thought of. And Mr. Chair, how do you want to take these 3 recommendations and establish them in the committee? Do you want to have discussions and figure out who the committee is first before we adopt the recommendations?
Let's do that. Let's figure out who we're going to put on this committee that does. We need leaders in this group. We need people that are willing to commit to do this.
And I just have to say, I left the provider community out because I'm assuming most of the provider community wants to submit an application. If you're on this committee, you can't apply. So that might, San Benito County is both provider and it might be hard. So with that, the one name that I've kind of pre-vetted is Laura Lee Alexander.
I've been voluntold to be on this committee. And I happily accept
It's a regular big deal.
So Elliot, well, the county is not involved in this particular part of the application. I think that social services would be willing to participate if that's not a conflict.
Should be. Can I figure it out, Gloria?
Ellie, just a question. If jurisdictions apply, can they be from maybe not the department that applies for? Because that would preclude any jurisdictions from, being on it, but perhaps if they're not from the department. And I would think it would be really great to have someone from public safety represented, because there's such a.
Okay. I'm harking back to my AB 123 training, which many in the room probably have done, right?
One of the ones.
And I believe that the different department process works. I would just caution them to be very cognizant of any perception of a conflict of interest in going down that path. So I think technically we can go there. I just would recommend some cognizance of that perception of conflict of interest. And also to say that to the extent the jurisdiction is operating their own program, that probably, could be a little bit squishy. But it may pop up nonetheless. And maybe just, if they have to recuse themselves, we can have that.
probably want to talk internally, but if it's okay, we would probably want, you know, someone coordinating. We have a homeless service coordination team for the city, so maybe we could identify who would be appropriate on that team.
Okay,
That's okay with the mayor?
sure.
Just for San Benito, I would say the same thing. I could certainly get back to you with a few names. And for my understanding, we're talking about a county representative, just one, or also a nonprofit representative?
I would be, I just would say, if it's a nonprofit, that's not going to apply.
So I guess what I'm trying to get to is it one in total for San Benito, or how many would you?
I would recommend one, because you don't want too many people designing an fund, makes it complicated. You know, it doesn't need to be a huge group, it'll come back to this board. It's important to have a feeling of participation for everyone. But it's also important to be relatively practical about how we get it back and out and bring it back to the public venue.
I think it's important to say that you don't have somebody at the table.
Of course, definitely.
So
That's been one of our messages. We've sent somebody from the seaside area who represents the peninsula. I think that's extremely important. Whether it's Ian or it's somebody from his.
I'll take a step.
There you go. And
Okay. We still need,
we have someone from the Veterans Transit.
Rob? That's it.
I'd like to see one non-conflicted service provider. I can think of a couple. If you give me a little time, I can get back to you with.
Would you lay a name on?
Yeah, I'll
send
check-
names, 'cause
check
I
out.
think that's important. That we need the mix of all the knowledge to put on the table.
And will there be a representative from the homeless community or not at this point in the process?
Why not?
Yeah, if anyone has a recommendation, it's what we're here to do, put recommendations and come to consensus with who we have designing our RFP. Again, I just want to say that it's.
There's one to the right.
I was going to ask, because I'm new at this, do you accept volunteers to help out who's ever running the program?
Well, it's not so much running the program, it's just creating a.
Would you accept volunteers that don't work with the county or the government?
Yeah, and it's the different here is that some of them do volunteers, so if you're, you know.
If you're knowledgeable of stuff.
That's fine.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Gives you a client.
You volunteer?
Yes, I am.
What's your name again?
Cecilia Crippen.
Cecilia Crippen, and,
Don't try to trick this group though.
I won't turn into a card game or something, I'm just kidding.
if you get your contact information to Roxanne and I will.
Yes, sir.
We'll make sure you get the invite.
Where do we need Elliot?
Not hard to find.
We need South County. I would just say South County right now. South Monterey County.
Is that Mayor of King City yet? Yeah, Mayor of King City is going to volunteer.
Voluntold.
Need you not to show up. You thought this was a great idea.
Okay, Mayor of King City's there. Okay. So what I have down, just to check my note-taking skills, which are very limited. Mayor of King City, Mayor of Benito, Cecilia Crippen, one non-conflicted service provider that Robin will scare up for us. Mayor Velasquez from Hollister, Loretta Rowland from Monterey County, Laura Lee Alexander from the Community Foundation of Monterey County, a representative from the city of Salinas, Enrique, and Ian. And are you the San Benito County?
We are applying, so I'm not sure if there's going to be a conflict, so I'll get
I
back
could
to
just
the
go
board.
with Mayor Velasquez too.
I can recurse myself.
Okay.
Okay. And then Mayor will speak. That's what I have on my list.
Anybody else have any ideas before we move back to the money?
Yeah, I have some.
Did you say you wanted to?
I still look at the whole show now.
I do want to say something actually. One more comment before we kind of open up for full discussion on the distribution of funding. A lot of times we're used to annual appropriations. You get $3.2 million per year. A lot of people will hear that. This is not $3.2 million per year. It's a one-time pot of money. So whatever we get may not come again. And it has a lifespan that takes us through June 31, 2025. So this is not as a bit, you know, when you hear $3 million, you say, wow, that's a lot of money. If you kind of chunk it down into what per year for some stability, it's about $600,000 a year, which if I convert that into a full-time equivalent, you know, maybe 9 full-time equivalents worth of effort. So we should be excited because it's a great thing, but I also want to just let people know that it's not a panacea. And it's not an ongoing appropriation, which is really what, in many ways, we need as we develop programs. We need that ongoing funding. This is one time for the 5-year lifespan. So I just wanted people to have that also kind of basis of knowledge so that we can interpret things. With that, any discussion from the council?
Can we talk about the money, how the division's done?
Elliot, so briefly, also note that there's the county allocation. So the county allocation, I think it's a little over $3 million or so.
Monterey counties are?
It's just a county allocation, but some of the counties would be about 311,000, I think.
Yes.
So that's another resource that San Benito County will be applying for, and to help with shelter subsidies. That's going to be our focus. I'll let you know.
And Monterey County has another 2.66. So those are the 3 pots.
Oh, I know that the leadership council is first. After that, I have a comment.
Any other comments from the leadership council? And we're okay with, just to be clear before we go to the public, prior to no questions on the division of funding that the staff work through, with the caveat that when we get the NOFA, it can change.
Right.
Oh, yeah, I just, one thing that I would express some reservations about is just having funding for shelter beds and transitional housing and I think the reason why it's important is because there's a lot of maybe opportunity for permanent supportive housing to be built. And as I've been talking to like interim more recently with the no place like home funding, it's really important to have those, you know, either shelter beds or transition beds to help bridge people into the permanent supportive housing. And that's why I think it's not an ongoing subsidy. It's really, if we're going to be trying to produce a lot of permanent supportive housing, we need some funding to help open up more opportunities for that transition time. And I hear that San Benito County is going to use most of their allocation for that. So I'm just concerned that we don't have any funding set aside for that. And of course, we can change it in the future, but I'm just, you know, concerned that that's something we include. I think it's number 11 maybe.
I did.
Or no, I'm sorry, not that. It's 12.
Just, you know, to comment, because I, you know, I definitely heard that when we met internally earlier. And in talking to some other folks who are very involved, the chair of this council and our funder, they were also very interested in innovation and had some reluctance around capital. And so it's either way, I just want to say, as we do the NOFA, I think there'll be another opportunity to revisit priorities, both in the development of the NOFA, which will come back to this board to approve, and to the actual results and funding that come from the NOFA. There are a number of challenges that we hear, and just also the innovations. You know, the one thing that they called out, which was very novel, and those of us who were at the League of Cities and County Supervisors Association of California's workshop on homelessness, kind of brought up the value of hotel-motel conversions as a much more cost-effective way to establish those shelter resources.
San Francisco did, where they did some of their apartments and hotels and the homeless shelters.
Correct, and it's not always easy, and that's something that as a community we try. to work
Yeah,
with.
it's very.
But that's a technical issue that I think we can deal with in the aftermath. It's my personal recommendation, trying to channel some of the input I have from people who are not here today, who are on council.
And I think innovation solutions sounds real nice on paper. This is a room full of doers that make stuff happen. You know, this Gus doesn't, they want to hear something other than innovation. They would love to hear you're going to build 40 apartments to put people off the street, because we're all dealing with people on the street every day. And I think, as I kept thinking, what does that mean?
Well, the example they have is the hotel motel example, but really, innovation can be anywhere from the standard to the non-standard.
Okay.
And the rental assistance vouchers also are what typically, in the most cost-effective way, provide that kind of transitional housing opportunity. I also do want to point out from HEAP, one of the points of input that we received from the community when we held our community workshops were the value and need for outreach services and the effort to bring people into services and through the employment process into housing. So when we did the HEAP, we funded, of the $12 million allocation, over $9 million of that went to capital projects. And as those capital projects are being developed, I'm sure there'll be some need for ongoing operational resources as well.
Okay.
I just understood that Hollister is able to discharge people to the hotel right next door. I don't know if you could just share how that's working briefly.
So whenever we have common clients that are the shelter or with whole person care, and they need to be discharged, so they'll call us, and if they don't have a place to go to, we will work with the voucher program with whole person care for 3 nights of hotel until they get stabilized. Usually it's 3 nights, and if they need more time, we could also approve additional nights. And the hotel is walking distance, 300 feet or so away from here.
And I understand it's been a godsend for a lot of folks. So I understand it's been really.
Yeah, very beneficial, yeah.
Yeah, just one comment about that. The hotel and motel situation will not work in South County or Salinas. I've talked to a number of homeless service providers because most of them are being used for migrant workforce, and that's probably the future for some time. I mean, luckily that growers are building, but it's going to take some time. So by the time some of those opportunities are up, it's going to be late in the process. So just it's good that Hollister has that opportunity, but I can tell you I've been talking to social services about it and interim, and it's not many hotels.
I just had a comment, maybe a clarification. So the placeholder allocations, that's sort of what we're calling them now, we have to have this all shored up, right, by the 15th of February? Is that right?
For the placeholders, yes.
Okay.
But they're just placeholders. We have to submit by the 15th of February.
Okay.
Another quick comment. So regarding your comment about the need for transitional housing, I completely agree with you. I wish we had a lot of funding and bring additional transitional housing because it's a huge need. We have a housing crisis in our COC. I did want to point out just briefly that, with HEAP, the goal is for us to build 14 units for a total beds of 42 beds. And also we received a grant from the state transitional housing grant. So that build 8 units right the other part of this facility. So we have a shelter, we have services, and then we have some transitional housing. And also through the whole person housing grant, we are in the process, or our goal is to get a triplex 3 units for a total of 12 beds. So that will be a total of 62 beds that will be eventually available, I would say, in the next year, hopefully or so. And then along with whole person care, 6 to 8 permanent housing with a nonprofit developer. So that's kind of a glimpse in why we felt that the need for San Benito County is to dedicate for shelter subsidies, because that is a huge need for us right now to maintain operations year after year. So just wanted to point that out.
Anyone else?
Hey?
Anybody else?
Um,
Look forward to what's being brought back to us from the committee.
Yeah, and again, we know what. And I would, just as an outgoing person, hopefully, I would recommend some caution around capital development with this kind of money when there's very little coming down the pipe for operations, and we have a number of capital funds, both for old person care and a place like home, and what we put into the process.
So we need to make a motion to approve.
Yes.
I move to approve the recommendation as presented for the HAP application.
Any more conversation?
Just for clarification, so if we get applications that percentage distribution is different than what's being approved, that's also going to be considered.
Correct. We can change the allocations based on what the NOFA comes in with. So we will have the opportunity to select the most practical, meaningful projects that close whatever gaps are identified beforehand.
That, all those in favor?
Aye.
Those opposed? Okay.
Thank you.
Governor's budget.
Okay, I have something to hand around. I brought pencil copies, which is so everyone can probably get a copy here. So. Okay, so the governor's issued his budget just over a week ago, or about 2 weeks ago. As you know, the first part of the state budget process is the governor releases the governor's recommendation, typically in January. That forms a very strong foundation for the budget. It gets revised again in May, depending on where receipts are, either up or down. Last few years, typically it's not. Let's keep our fingers crossed that it's not a downward change. And then the legislature gets to weigh in through the legislative deliberation. The legislature may also increase or decrease. So there's still several more steps in front of us. We won't know what the outcome is until sometime in July. But in the governor's budget recommendation, which carries lots and lots of fun, there is the establishment of the California Access to Housing and Services Fund. That will not be operated the same way as it had. So the California Access to Housing and Services Funds is $750 million. Again, it's a one-time allocation of funding. It's not going to be administered by the Homeless Coordinating and Financing Council. It will be administered by the California Department of Social Services. The intent is that the funds will flow between performance-based contracts between the state and regional administrators, which are not defined, and will be subject to a 10% administrative cap. Funds can be used for short and long-term rental subsidies, small and medium-sized contributions for new housing units in exchange for rental credits. That's something that's very important to our nonprofit housing developers. Stabilization of board and care facilities, which many of us in the kind of homeless world, actually many of us are aware of board and care facilities, but board and care facilities that serve individuals who don't have private insurance companies, that are funded off of SSI, have been struggling and have been going out of business or being shut down for providing inadequate standards of care. Your partners in social services, particularly in the adult protective services world, are very aware of that. And board and care facilities, actually for people who cannot take care of themselves or the same function, similar function as permanent supportive housing. So stabilization of board and care facilities through capital projects or operating subsidies are part of this. That is great from a sort of, for many of us, I used to be, for those of you who don't know, I used to be the social services director in Monterey County, so I'm like, wait a minute. Now the homeless person's like, oh, I'm not sure. But it's a very important resource for homeless services if it is available and if the board and care facilities pay. But it's a huge need, depending on what they could do, they could eat much of that money. Landlord engagement, including securing units, tenancy support, case management for people receiving rental subsidies, and converting state property into permanent supportive housing. So that's what that fund will be, is used and structured. And the big thing is it's structured different than what we've seen. So I can't kind of go to you and say, I know how it's been done in the past this way. This is new. And it's new for the California Department of Social Services as well. Also on January 8th, the governor issued an executive order to make state property available to increase housing and shelter options, to make available 100 camp trailers available for temporary housing, mobile health services, and social services clinics. Create a state crisis response team to help communities utilize state resources, and require that we demonstrate, as local governments and service partners, that we demonstrate our project towards measurable goals regarding moving people out of dangerous encampments and into healthy, stable housing situations. So that's the executive order. The big piece in that for me is making the state property available and the trailers available. Next big element is Medi-Cal Healthier California for All, which includes a $695 million appropriation grown to $1.4 billion in 21-22 and 22-23. As best I read this, and I will look to, I think, Elsa and maybe Enrique to correct me if I have this wrong, but whole person care, which is a very important component of our homeless network, sunsets on December 30th, 2020.
Correct.
And so this is the governor's effort to make the whole person care project permanent, as best I read it. It incorporates the goals of whole person care into the Medi-Cal program as a whole. So having whole person care made permanent is a big deal. And that seems like that's an intention. Elsa, am I getting that right?
Yes, whole person care-like approaches. So currently, each county or applicant was able to design their whole person care pilot however they wanted to meet that jurisdiction's needs. The way that we understand it going forward is that the state wants to run these services through our local managed care plan. So for Monterey County, it's Central California Alliance for Health. I don't know for San Benito, you guys don't have Anthem. And they want there to be some consistency in terms of how those strategies are implemented through managed care.
Across the state.
Across the state. The great thing is that the state is recognizing the early successes of the whole person care pilots across the state in terms of engaging a very difficult population and reintegrating them into services, both social, health, housing, etc. And wanting to further invest in that. Obviously, all the details still have to be worked out in terms of what that means in terms of dollars for managed care to the local jurisdictions. But it is very telling in terms of where we need to be prioritizing our services if we hope to improve health outcomes and more importantly be able to achieve savings longer term in medical spending.
But it sounds like we'll shift the responsibility from the health department to the alliance.
To the managed care plan, and at least for our jurisdiction, the intent is to continue to work with their local health departments, which would be Santa Cruz, ourselves, and Merced County, in terms of continuing that delivery system.
So the good news is this takes a step to move whole person care from pilot to policy. The complicated news is you don't know what's coming out yet. So good news and, not a bad question mark. We get to wonder a bit and hopefully we'll get it right with our participation as jurisdictions more from the health side on how that should be structured. Final major piece, although it's not as major as it sounds, or it's hard to put kind of money on it or anything, but is the behavioral health quality improvement program. And one of the challenges that I know many experience kind of in the behavioral health world is the difficulty of some of the federal requirements around medical necessity and charting, and it makes accessing behavioral health services really hard when many of us in the room will say, yeah, but that's one of the keys. And so I believe that having this behavioral health quality improvement program being embedded in the governor's homeless plan is going to look for ways to work through those issues, which kind of are a schism between the people who have to administer the federal policy, the providers, and the community. And that's been a very difficult place for many of our behavioral health programs across the state. So hopefully in the establishment of a task force, some number of years down the line, it'll get better. That's how I read that. Sorry for being a little bit flipped there. And third, or final element is a community care collaborative pilot, which will expand to 3 counties. Who knows if either of our counties will be part of that pilot, but it is to establish a 6-year pilot program that provides incentives to treat and serve individuals deemed incompetent to stand trial. So those are the major elements in the governor's budget, and between me and other experts in the room, I'm happy to answer the field any questions. I don't know if I can answer them, but
There's more to come.
So those are basically the broad brush strokes. Yes, to be detailed out.
But I understand there are already moving trailers out.
Yes, and Oakland.
Oakland got theirs, of course, their mayor's on the task force, so just don't know how that happened. Any questions? We got one more item. We may even end on time. Coordination assessment and referral system, CARS, status.
Russia, why don't I do this up if you want to correct me or add to it? Just to say that we've been on the track for what we're calling home version 3, which is the coordinated entry piece of software. And locally we call coordinated entry CARS, the coordinated assessment and referral system. We've been working to bring up a new module that meets a couple of requirements. One is better note-taking, more ease of use for the provider networks, while it sustain the breadth of its usage, and also meet some HUD requirements on coordinated entry. At this moment, the jury's out whether our vendor can deliver what needs to be delivered. So I'm just giving you a heads up that we may have to go out and revisit how we're operating coordinated entry.
That was a nice one, yes.
Anybody have any questions of Elliot on this one?
It's a little bit in the weeds, but sometimes you do have to get in the weeds.
Is this the new provider that we just switched to?
No.
No, that's HHAP.
Okay, got it.
It's the one we left for HMIS.
Okay, thank you.
So could you provide a little bit more detail about where we're falling short?
Jen, that's yours.
There were certain things that we asked for, simple things. Upload should be, you should be able to upload forms. You should be able to notify an agency if a referral is made available to that program. And they're just not delivering. And it's kind of like a laundry list of failures. And every time they come back to us and say, that is ready for launch, let's pick a date. We're like, hold on, let's take a minute and go through, and the issues still exist. And this has been going on for well over a year, so.
So we're putting you on notice that we are putting them on notice.
And right now, people aren't really using it as intended to share data so that you can track an individual through the systems.
Currently, you cannot track it without going, actually speaking to someone in the coalition. You can't view it. In the home version 3, you would be able to track clients' progress through the referral system.
And have we, I'm sorry, have we done a user survey? Because obviously, the organizations are the ones who have to, so like a customer satisfaction, is that how you came up with it?
Yes, we did do a user survey, we did a client survey, we've done, we got our entire system evaluated last year.
Okay.
And one of the conclusions is that we should leave home version 2. So.
So just a clarifying point between, there's a difference between CARS, which is what we're discussing now, and HMIS. So CARS is meant to be coordinated entry into our system. It is not necessarily meant for a lot of data sharing between agencies about particular clients. That's what HMIS is for. So, you know, we're not seeing failure in HMIS. We're seeing failure in coordinated entry, not meeting our expectations and continually coming back to us with inferior product.
And our goal is to make the system as effective as we can, both for the customer who's accessing services and the provider who is providing services. So that's what we're looking at for.
Now that I understand with the clarification that you gave, Roxanne, it's been going on for a while, so what's the time frame for, you know, what's their fish or cut bait time?
Next week or two.
Next what?
Next week or two.
Okay.
So we'll have an update at the next meeting.
Almost like. Yeah, we will. I mean, if it's back to the way it's like, you fix it. But if not, let's say so.
Then if they can't fix the issues, then will we go through an RFP process to find another provider, or what?
If I may, I'd suggest that we use HMIS anyway. They highly suggest that we use HMIS anyway, so it
Is
would
the
make
CARS
sense.
or separate from CARS?
Yes, in most communities, it's the same system. In our community, we have separate systems.
So you could use HMIS to integrate the CARS tasks that we need.
So you talked about some of the barriers, and what is another barrier, why that wasn't integrated initially?
Because home version 3 does not cost agencies $1. It costs the coalition, therefore the county, lots of money, but it does not cost the agencies anything to use. So we were able to ask grassroots organizations to also do CARS assessments. That obviously would change as HMIS licenses are $400 a license. But
So
it'll still be cheaper.
Yeah, without going into kind of all the financial details, because I don't think it's necessarily appropriate at this forum today, but just to say that there are some mechanics to weigh and balance, because you do want for coordinated entry a broad group of people to do it. We can go to our service providers, Monterey organizations, law enforcement, social workers, and say, hey, you can use CARS as well. If you have a homeless client, you can refer them in to the system. That's something that we obviously don't want to lose, because you want to make sure that for access to the housing programs, that it's as broad as possible, and that we really are being able to reach those who are most vulnerable. And just, again, just for people here who aren't into the kind of details of the coordinated entry system, the policy is that it's not first come, first served. It's most vulnerable first. And so the CARS assessment is one that's assessing vulnerability. The assessment itself wouldn't change, but the software behind it would change. But it is in our interest, I believe, to make sure that there's as broad access as possible to using that system. And so that's what we're going to try and sustain.
One more question, I'm sorry. So we've talked at some time, I know Anna Station has brought this up about the concept of having real-time data on units that are available. Is that something, if we are kind of reevaluating? Because I think yeah, units. So so that you could track in real time, like, oh, there's a unit here that would be ready for someone who's in replacement.
But the barrier would be that agencies would have to be the ones that are updating by the.
So there was suggested previously that there be a linkage formed between 211 and our system. And I also heard some reference, I'm not sure if I'm correct on this, that Tableau would also be involved in that report. But that kind of died on the vine.
So we actually do have Tableau. Service Point has Tableau-like called Click. So we wouldn't lose visual reporting capabilities. One thing to also consider is that if HUD is highly suggesting that we use this software, it's because they're going to want us to start doing comparative analysis. And when I asked our vendor where are we at with moving forward with that, they recommended that we just do uploads into HMIS. So then that would also cut, when I got a quote on that, that was $2,000 an upload. So it would be probably even less real time.
So again, we're just trying to be very pragmatic in terms of how software works to improve the product, but sustain what we find as valuable. I mean, obviously, there are lots of things that people would like to see happen with software. A lot of those things people would like to say are dependent on people, knowing as many systems as I've worked on, being part of the team to bring up the, between ISAWs and C4 in California. I've seen the quality of data entry from lots of people, and I am not a perfectionist. So as much as maybe as that would be beautiful, it would take a lot more resources to our providers to get there, and I'm sure they would want.
Well, I think somewhere down the road, the data to these individuals that are dealing with the folks that need our help is extremely important. We can't keep waiting another year, because pretty soon, the gentleman waited how long to get into a house? We have to be out there doing the work to do some good, and we can't wait. I can't ask him, just hang on to those people, we'll get with you soon, because we're entering the data. I think we as the Leadership Council, as a coalition, we've got to make sure we're pushing this information in there so it's accessible to the providers, because we hold their feet to the fire when they apply for any of our money. We say, where's your information? We're going to have to figure out how to make this better and not later. And so that's something that's my personal opinion, because I hold our staff, they sometimes, they didn't ride with me for a reason. I've been left on San Juan Great. This is the wrong place. But it really is something we all have to work on together. And I know that it's difficult, and I know that it's expensive, but we need to get the data out there so we can help the people that need our help. Because most of us here have a place to sleep tonight. Most of us don't have to sleep in the rain. And we have women and children that are staying in shelters and aren't good.
I was just going to say the same thing. I was listening to the conversation. It sounds like some of that innovation money has to go back so we can regroup and think about how we're going to move forward over the next couple of years. There's a lot of money coming down, and if we're talking about all these different acronyms, all these different programs, we're not talking to each other, then that's us. That's not on the homeless person. We can fix that. That's what I'm saying. We can fix how we talk to each other, and the nonprofits. Process this information. And it doesn't seem like we've done that in years. Everybody just keeps adding to these programs, but if we see the programs that are not allowing us to talk to each other, then that's innovation. So that's my 2 cents about the grants coming up. Maybe some room for someone to think about how do we do that.
The procedural process, somebody should be in charge of the procedural process.
Okay, I just want to make clear, just from some of the comments, that CARS works. We just want it to be better.
Yeah.
I just want that to be clear.
Well, we have not, it's almost, we've been pretty close here, and I know that you've all been very patient. Has anybody got anything else before we move?
I have a quick one.
Sure.
So I wanted to pass this out really brief and give you a basis of where you're at right now. And this is a diagram of this facility, we secured CDBG state funding in 2014 that allowed us to purchase this empty building. So phase one this is divided in 3 phases. Phase one is a shelter. And by the way, Christina, immediately following this meeting, whoever is interested, she's gonna lead a quick tour next door. So I welcome you and encourage you to participate in this tour if you can. And in 2016, we got another grant from the state, and this is the building that you see right there, you're in right now. Phase 3 is the back end of this facility, and you see, it's not color coded, but towards the end, there's gonna be 8 units, transitional shelter, 2 years. We anticipate these units to be completed at the end of this year. So I wanted to make you aware of some of our efforts where you're at right now, and also the tour following the meeting. So that's just for your information. Oh, and the back page, just to let you know, give you a basis of where the HEAP transition units will be. The migrant centers will give you a quick layout on that.
Yes, sir. On a sad note, you'll see on the news that that last night there was someone killed on the corner of Incheon Parkway and 3rd Street in Williams. That was a BTC resident. So it's as sad as can be. He was disabled, elderly, handicapped, in a wheelchair, hit by a truck and across the lawn. The good news is that this community had really supported this individual. He was right on the cusp of permanent housing. He had been enrolled in health care, but I just want to call attention to the risk and vulnerability of these people. So again, we're very sad about that. On a good note, right after our last meeting, the federal government had a competition to award the old VA clinic that's in Seaside on Engineering Lane. It's 6 acres and 35,000 square foot structure. BTC received the award. We're negotiating with the federal government now on a 75-year lease for the facility. Seaside has been very helpful with helping us conceive what we might do there, but housing and services for this community is what we're really looking to do. So more to follow on that. We're looking for investment partners, development partners, and tenants. So please see me.
Can I actually, Kurt reminded me of something I didn't put on the agenda because then it's just information that just happened after before I drafted it. Now that is really important for you to know. We did get our initial award letter on our continuum of care funding, and all our Tier 1 projects were approved. Our bonus project is in Tier 1, so it wasn't a bonus project. That was a little bit disappointing, but our permanent supportive housing grants did get a fair market rate bump. So we actually got more funds in our Tier 1 APR annual ARD annual renewal demand amount. So that's a good thing. And we are still waiting to hear about our Tier 2 project. So that is good news. There was a lot of work that your staff put into updating our continuum of care collaborative grant application, and I think you did well.
Awesome.
Thanks everyone for coming, we appreciate it. Thank you. And the young lady said we were all of you.
So our kitchen was put together in the spring of this last year. It allows for all of our dishes and all of our cookware to be handled there. We have a lot of clergymen, a lot of locals, a lot of community supporters that come in to cook. Sometimes their dinners are provided already home cooked, so they're just brought in.
Very cool.
We'll go ahead and bring you in.
During the day, the residents can stay here if
They
they want
take their lunch with them in the morning.
So we do have a packed house, but our operating hours are between 4:30 p.m. and 8 a.m.
There's
But residents are allowed to come in here, assign chores, we can come in a little further.
Huge asset for us there, so he leaves there and comes over there and helps us, and it's wonderful that he's a big part of that. So we open at 7 in the morning and we have hot breakfast, because we get a lot of people on the bridges and the trees, and that, because there's 50 guests here. But in the day it closes and there's a lot of senior citizens, so we open our doors and the bus drops them off at our place and picks them up.
Good, so they have a place to go.
No, I stay here. I mean, there's another person that does the driving. I don't do that part, but I
breakfast and hot lunch. reserve Saturdays to go.
They do have a shuttle. There's two vans that leave. One takes them to McDonald's or to
Typically provided by Martha's Kitchen.
and that's where
These trays are donated fully by that organization. We also have clergymen, city folk, a lot of supporters that are just individual families that come in with cooked dinners. But we also give them the option to utilize our facility to cook their dinners, and then sometimes we do have some of our guests with staff.
But, you know, everything always will show up.
It was built in spring.
Like it.
Lots of fridge. State of the art and everything. It's looking good.
This is an additional room. It's a computer lab. It's our computer lab.
How much use does this room get? Is it busy all the time?
So actually, this is one of the rooms that we got set up not long ago. And we got the computers in phases because we didn't have all the money. So this will be used in partnership with Community Homeless Solutions. So at the moment, this is pretty fresh. You can still kind of smell the freshness. So we're getting geared up as far as development programming from computer literacy to job search, assistance, or any specific workshops for individuals in need. So this is new, and we're in the process of kind of establishing process and guidelines and types of programs and working with community partners. So this will be open also for partners to come on and use it. So just wanted to show you this is part of the plans that move forward.
Laundry services is also open up this week. So we do have schedules assigned to their butts. So whatever the site scheduling allows for.
They would clean clothes and razor and stuff in the hotel room.
And so we like to incorporate
The guys that hung out around Jack in the Box and stuff, I would just, okay, it's your night to
and
go
they
to the
pay for
hotel.
themselves.
What happens if you have a person with disability and they can't do it?
You know what, our staff and then their peers alike are really helpful. And that's wonderful. We live in a very well-structured community, but we do have a lot of support within the community as well.
Is there a limit to the number of days that the residents can stay?
As of right now, we haven't had any.
Okay, do you have like a list? Do you have a wait list?
We do have a wait list, typically more so in the male population than we do in the female population.
All right.
What time do
Thank
they
you.
check in or come
Check-in
out?
time is at 4:30 p.m. and we carry them on till the next morning at 8 o'clock in the morning.
Okay.
So Ms. Lamby did mention earlier, she does have services that she extends to our guests and then other population in need throughout the day. So we drop them off and we pick them up in town.
Is this only for adults?
Yes. Yeah, we refer to them as unaccompanied adults, so anybody that's 18 over, and we house independently on the male side as well as the female side. So you'll be entering the female dorm.
Okay.
What is that breakdown
of
the male and female?
It varies, it's a variable count, so there is no shelter here for families.
What if one of the individuals has a four-legged animal?
Yeah, I'd lobby for that when it's open and so they can bring them because that was one of the reasons people weren't coming.
So they, whatever they bring with them, they can keep here so long as they abide by our guidelines. We have an 18-gallon tote and a 1-bag guideline for their belongings. We do ask them to roll up their beds, and so they're pretty good about that.
Do you have any trouble with people respecting other people's belongings?
Not typically.
No. Good.
Love it.
I see that.
Respectful.
Maybe just, is it mobility access that prevents people from going onto the second?
Yes, and so our manager is very sensitive about those needs, and all our bottom bunks are reserved for individuals with medical needs. Otherwise, it's top bunk. Yes.
So it looks like you have some capacity.
We do. More so on the women's side than we do on the male side.
I would have a trouble.
I could get up.
So we have our fountain, and then Fernando's going to take you through our bathrooms.
We'll start with the ladies' side. Here in the ladies' restroom, they have 3 showers, one for disabled people right here. They have the
5 bathroom stalls. We have lockers. Unfortunately, there's not enough for everybody, but it's kind of like a first come, first serve thing, but they can put their shower stuff and any of their belongings in here to keep them safe. Just in case if there's any kind of, thought about theft or anything like that, then they do have lockers that they can keep them, safe right here. The showers are open during certain times when we're having like dinner. Like at 6 o'clock, we do lock the showers so that we keep everybody over there, so nothing gets taken, and then we also close the dorms. Yes. So we can do that, just for everyone's protection with their belongings and everything. So we keep that in mind. On the male side, there is 4 showers and 1 less bathroom stall.
So they provide their own toiletries, towels. We do have donations continuously. We do also have our management team that brings in things, our agency that provides fundage for that. But we have the giving tree that you are all more than welcome to take through and take a leaf, and we will appreciate whatever donation that is. And we do have, and then towel service, they're responsible for their own towels, yes, washing their towels and all. We do assign them some, but sometimes it's just based on. So this is our common area. We call it the community room. You'll notice that we have boards up. All of our guests are encouraged to participate in different chores. Like we said earlier, we do incorporate a lot of what our daily lives consist of, right? So Fernando is going to take you through the male dorm, and then you can go ahead. Oh yeah, it's great. So this right here. More.
Right, I guess they're all occupied.
Yeah, it's a little bit more constricting in here, but.
Right. So are there any vacancies at this point?
On the male side, there is none at the moment. On the female side, I believe there's 2. I'll have to double check that. It's either 1 or 2.
Right. What's the capacity?
Right now we are at capacity on the male side.
What number is that, the capacity?
38. And then on the female side, I believe it's 22. Yeah, it's the layout has changed. They've actually put a few more. We added the cots.
Oh, okay.
And I believe they added 2 more racks to the original plan.
Very cool.
So yeah, we really try to put as many as we can in there while keeping it safe as well.
Right. Eating area?
This is our eating area, our TV viewing area. We have games. We have people that come in. From like Andy Anderson comes in and she'll do like knitting. She'll do painting. We have some of the paintings here on the wall that guests made. She instructs them on certain projects, and then they kind of go on their own. And all of these were done by guests here. There was more. I think there's a couple in Christina's office, but those were all done by guests here. From not watching TV to playing board games to doing painting, knitting. There are many things for us to do here. This is where we come in. This is where security greets the guests, and they go through a little screening process here. They have to just make sure they have no weapons, no drugs, no paraphernalia. And once that's established,
We don't have to check them into that.
every night they are checked. Every night. Not really. Every time they come in, their bags are searched. They're searched. Pat downs are only done randomly, but they are searched. I mean, their bags are gone through. Any weapons, any knives, or any kind of like sharp tools, we keep it in a box down here. They can come as they leave the premises. They can collect those, but it is checked every day. There's no in and out. It's occasional. The tools and stuff like that, knives, that happens pretty much every day. It's usually the same people, and we keep their stuff, and then they take their stuff. Right. Yes, none of that can enter. It's just a danger to everybody. And that's one of the reasons why security's on that. Like, it's really strict, and there's no in and out privileges.
You don't have like private security, is this with staff training stuff?
No, we do have, it's a company called ASIG. They work in other places in the community as well. We have ASIG right here during the day
from 4 to midnight every day. That's Monday through Sunday. From 12 to 8, it's staff coordinated security. You know, we just monitor everything and make sure everything's okay. But yes, we do have security every day. We have had issues with that. You know, people try to sneak it in. That's one of the main things that security tries to stop. And they do occasionally find things, and it's disposed of. If the gentleman or the woman wants to keep it, you are allowed to do that. But you must be the premises. That's their option.
But it's not.
It's an occasional thing. It does not happen all the time. No. And it's usually with new people, you know, just, you know, they're unfamiliar with the rules, and then, you know, they have, say, a liquor or whatever they might have on them. And, you know, that's the option you're given. You can stay, but you must get, you know, throw away the item, or you can go and you can take it. And it's, you know, that little scenario, it has.
And illicit substance issues is tossed.
It's tossed and disposed of, yes. That's one of the main things our security watches.
I'm getting good ideas, developing that business. So it's nice to know how someone's doing, our neighbors are doing it.
Yeah, I mean, we're trying, I mean, we're always, you know, thinking of new things to do. I mean, but that's one of the great things with Christina. I mean, she's always on the process of, you know, making this place better. Yeah. For now, it's a little easier.